So your game is happening this weekend and you've got an amazing adventure prepped with an evil cult that turns out to be a hoax and a helpless young queen who turns out not to be a victim at all but secretly running the whole thing, and an NPC ally who turns out to be a spy all along. But then of course your players do everything out of order, you're not sure which plot twists to pull out next, or worse, the way that you wrote them down no longer makes sense. Well, it turns out the two things you need to prep are what I call plot points and drama points, and knowing the difference between them is going to allow you to flex to whatever your players are doing at the table. I try to stay away from the term plot twists, so it's kind of nebulous when it comes to prep. Plot twists should actually be broken down into two things: plot points and drama points. The difference between them being that a plot point changes what the players believe is going on. Now, it might be something that is actually going on, but the important thing is that this is what the PCs believe is going on, who their enemies are, what their next objective is, but fundamentally, what they believe. Because when you define it that way, you suddenly realize why players have such power to gum up your game. It's because the things that they think and believe and infer and mistake on their own affect the story the same way that one of your plot points does. If players believe something about your game, they're going to act on it in exactly the same way as if you told it to them. So you need to act the exact same as if you told it to them. Treat it not as a mistake, but as something you had an NPC lie to them about. Once you start seeing these two things as one and the same, you realize that when players make assumptions, they're actually doing your work for you. Look at the plot point that they are currently believing. That is a plot point that is on the table right now, whether you want it to be or not. And use that for forward motion in your game. Determine the order of what happens next based on what would be the most interesting thing to follow up this player misunderstanding with. And instead of chasing after them with your list of prep, trying to get them back to check all your boxes, you can build on top of what they believe. Pick the best plot twist to follow it. Give them a game where the stakes are always rising as one rug after the other is pulled out from under them. Because that's what plot twists are. And on the other hand, a drama point is something that happens that changes what the enemies are up to, what the player goals are, etc., but doesn't necessarily change what the players think is happening. And there's two reasons to differentiate that. One is this keeps your plot points actually very few in number. You want your plot points and drama points to be findable, you also want them to be modular enough that they adapt to whatever is happening. So here's what I do. I have a separate page for plot points and drama points. I put the point name in bold, and I put possible ways the PCs might encounter this information as square bullets below, like checkboxes. And I call those discovery hints. They're hints to me about how the players might discover this information. And the point here is not to check all the boxes, because a lot of the time, the discovery hints that you brainstorm are not going to happen. The point here is, first, to have plenty of material on hand for ways that they could discover the information, and to have already been thinking flexibly about ways that this plot point or drama point could come into the game. That's going to serve you better than your prep any day. The way I use this is to have it face up behind my screen at all times, so those bold points are kind of ever present. And anytime I'm not talking, I can be thinking about which one of these seems like it would happen next, based on what's going on right now, and which discovery hint would be appropriate to bring it onto the table, although of course I can always brainstorm new ones, like maybe I was going to have them find out about this spy after he betrayed them, but based on something they're talking about, I think it'd be more interesting for them to catch him first and have to decide as a group what to do with him. Compared to my other components, this is definitely less of a fill form and more of a word processing thing, but you can download a blank form of it in the description. Oftentimes I'll have a list of plot points or drama points that go with a certain act of the story, or even with a location. But if a plot point is uniquely tied to an encounter, say it's a first encounter that you're going to force to happen in order to kick off the plot point, there's nothing wrong with forcing your hand like that sometimes, but I would never put the plot point in the encounter component. Instead, that encounter is a lone discovery hint under that plot point. That way you can keep incarnating the plot points and running the encounter as two distinct things that you're doing at the same time, but they're distinct from each other. Because when you're at your table, you do not want any chance of this information being unable to be found because it's tucked into a note somewhere because you were sure it was going to be part of this. Don't do it. That's what I created my component system to avoid. Organizing my stories this way has really helped make my prep clear and flexible, so my players always have a clear objective in front of them, and so that I am already on the road to reskinning scenes when I need to catch up with what they are doing. If you think this is a tool you would use, please give the video a like to make it more visible for other GMs, or share it with a GM that you know. Subscribe for more prep tools and game mastering tips. Stay creative, and I'll see you next time.